interpretation for this workshop. So let's go over Spanish interpretation instructions to make sure our Spanish participants are all set. I'm going to provide the set of instructions in English, and then my colleague Julia will repeat them in Spanish. On the bottom of your screen, you're going to see the interpretation globe. Also on the slide, the interpretation globe is circled in orange, and that's how it looks like. If you need Spanish speaking English, you're going to click on that globe. And from the pop-up menu, you're going to select Spanish option. And then there's going to be one more step before you're all set. You're going to click mute original audio. In this way, you're going to be in the Spanish channel with simultaneous translations. And Julia, if you want to provide these instructions in Spanish, please.
Okay, hola a todos. Para escuchar la interpretación en español, puedes usar los controles de Zoom. Haga clic en interpretación. Esto se puede localizar en la parte de abajo. Haga clic en el idioma que desee escuchar. Entonces, para esta reunión vas a ver inglés o español. Para escuchar solo el idioma interpretado, haga clic en silenciar audio original. También se llama Mute Original Audio. Si tiene preguntas durante la reunión, utilice la función de chat y escriba su pregunta.
Thank you, Julia. And if we want to clarify, those of you joining us on the tablet or cell phone, you may not see your interpretation globe on the bottom of your screen right away. You either have to click on the bottom for the pop-up menu on your device or scroll through the screens. And I want to just take a pause, and in the chat or by unmuting yourself, let us know if you have any questions or you have troubles switching to the translation, Spanish translation.
Si alguien tiene pregunta para escuchar la interpretación, puedes avisarnos ahora.
And Hannah, I do see a question from a 619 area code number. Last four digits are 6233.
I think the person probably hit *6, or I think she's joining on the phone and on her computer. Okay, well, I hear no questions. If at any point of this workshop you have technical difficulties listening to the Spanish interpretation, please feel free to pause it at any time and we'll try to troubleshoot this in real time. And thank you for your patience as we accommodate various languages in this workshop. Okay, so again, as I mentioned, my name is Hannah. I am with the Institute for Local Government, or ILG. ILG is a statewide nonprofit organization. And what we do is we provide practical and easy to use resources so local agencies can effectively implement policies and programs on the ground. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan, and we're here to help. And that's why we're here facilitating this workshop. With me, there's a big team working behind the scene, and you will have a chance to meet them as we go to our breakout groups. So with that, let's review our agenda. What are we doing today? So we're going to start with welcome and introductions and several housekeeping items. So thank you for your patience. Then we're going to hear from the San Diego team and Mid-City Can nonprofit, your San Diego nonprofit, about climate resilience San Diego draft plan, how this draft plan came to be, how community participated in this development of the draft plan, things like that. We're going to continue with overview of an interactive commenting platform. It's 2021. Commenting is becoming digital, and the city of San Diego put a nice platform for you to submit comments on this draft plan and view other people's comments as you scroll through the plan. And I'll give you a brief overview how this platform works. And a quick preview, it's super intuitive to use. Then we're going to break you all into groups, and you're going to have an opportunity to provide your verbal feedback and your thoughts on draft plan, and it's going to be facilitated group discussion. So we have a chance to hear from all of you. And then we're going to have a quick wrap up, and we'll identify next steps. What are other opportunities to contact the city and comment on the plan? And we will wrap up this workshop at 6:30 right on time so you can have your dinner and go back to your families and life. In terms of the agenda, we understand that some of you are more familiar with the process, some of you are less. So that's why setting the stage and overview of Climate Resilience San Diego will provide more background information for you. In this way, we're all on the same page. So workshop goals for today, what we're trying to achieve with this workshop. Well, we definitely would like you to inform about Climate Resilience San Diego draft plan, what it is. The city of San Diego would like to share findings from the engagement process to date and reflect back to the community members how their feedback is integrated into this draft plan. And a couple more workshop goals. We're also going to hear community input, your input about draft adaptation strategies and community priorities, and we'll do that exercise in our breakout groups. And finally, we're going to share the timeline and ways to provide additional feedback and comments on this draft plan and continue to stay engaged. Next slide, please. I'm going to say a lot. Next slide. Okay, let's go a couple more housekeeping items. For most of you, it's not the first Zoom meeting, and different Zoom meetings and community workshops are providing different opportunities to participate. We have a lot for you today. First of all, you've noticed on the bottom of your screen, you're going to have a chat where you are welcome to type questions during the meeting and welcome to type your responses and reactions. We will read some of the questions, those that are relevant and very good for the greater good on the group. Before we go to the breakout session, we will read some of the questions from the chat, and ILG team will respond to all the logistical questions in the chat. So feel free to type it in. Another opportunities for you to participate besides the chat, you can see your reactions. Use your reactions button to share your feelings about any of the topics we're discussing today. It's another great opportunity to participate non-verbally. Finally, all of you are staying on mute for the duration of the workshop, but you will have an opportunity to unmute yourself in the breakout groups. And also in the breakout groups, we hope you're going to have your videos on. And if you have your video on throughout this workshop, that would be great too. Okay, well, before we go into a quick poll, I would like just to ask you, the chat is open for you for questions and comments. Please be civil and respectful. This is a wonderful topic. The city is here and your community members is here to discuss the plan, to see how the plan and strategies can improve the well-being and health of your community members, your fellow members. So I kindly ask you to be civil, polite, and respectful in the chat and stay on topic. And if there's any other burning questions aside from the topics that we're discussing today in this workshop, please feel free to reach out to the City of San Diego after this workshop. And of course, we'll provide the contact information in the end. Okay, I am done with my housekeeping items, always a lot for every community meeting. So thank you for being present. I'm going to circle back to my colleague, Julia, to see if we have any late newcomers popping into our workshop to make sure they don't need Spanish translation. So if we want to go back to that Spanish translation slide to make sure, and Julia, if you can just announce that in Spanish to make sure everyone is set and ready to go.
Hola a todos, si alguien llegó que le gustaría participar en español, puedes hacer interpretación por Zoom usando estas instrucciones. Haga clic en el idioma que desea escuchar. Ahí tienes las opciones de español y inglés. Y para escuchar solo el idioma de español, haga clic en silenciar audio original. Y si tienes alguna pregunta durante la reunión, puedes usar la función de chat para escribir su pregunta. Gracias.
Great. Okay, we are ready for the poll, but again, at any moment, feel free to stop us if you have any technical difficulties and your translation is not working. My colleague Melissa is going to launch the poll. As I mentioned, there's a lot of us working behind the scene, and you're going to see those polling questions on your screen coming in just a moment.
Thanks, Hannah. Everybody should see the polling questions pop up on their screen right now. There are 4 questions that we're hoping you can answer for us. Just a little bit about yourself and how long you've lived in San Diego, and then how you heard about this workshop. And then if you are familiar with the Climate Resilient SD plan, and then who you're representing in this workshop, if you're here just as an interested resident, or if you're here representing a community group or anything like that. So we'll give you guys just a minute or two here to respond to these polling questions. About half of you have participated, so we'll give this just another few seconds here.
And on the back end, Melissa can see how many, the percentage of people that participated. So once most of you participated in this poll, she's going to share the results for all of you to see.
Yeah, I've got about 70% of folks have participated. So we'll give this just another few seconds here to see if we can get some additional responses. I'm going to go ahead and close this out and then share the results with everybody. So there you can see the responses to that first question. It looks like the vast majority of you have actually lived in San Diego for more than 10 years. So a lot of long-term residents joining us today. A little bit more split in terms of how you all heard about the workshop, but it looks like most of you did hear about it through the city's newsletter or a newsletter from a nonprofit. Also a lot of different responses in terms of how familiar you are with the plan, but it looks like a lot of you have visited the website or took a survey, but also a good percentage of you haven't heard much about it. So glad you're here with us today to learn more about the plan and provide feedback. And then also looks like the majority of you are just representing yourself as a community member on this evening's call, but also a good portion representing a nonprofit or community-based organization. So thank you all for participating.
Fantastic. And I don't know why I cannot see the polling results. So I had to take notes when Melissa was reading. So it sounds like not all of you are familiar with the San Diego climate resilience planning efforts, and that's okay. That leads us to our next segment, overview and context setting. Next slides, Melissa. Okay, so what are we doing with this for this section? For this section, we're going to hear from the San Diego team and a wonderful nonprofit, Mid-City Can, about how this draft plan came to be, what happened in the past, what type of public engagement events took place, what did we hear from the community. And the bulk of the presentation in the next 30 minutes is going to be what's actually in the plan, what types of goals, strategies, and policies are in the plan, so that you guys who haven't had a chance to review the draft plan that was posted online have a better understanding what it is and what's in it. So your San Diego team are Heidi Van Blum, and she's gonna kick off this segment, and Jordan Moore is gonna take over following Heidi. I'm gonna pass it to Heidi, and I hope most of all of you already know her.
Thank you, Hannah, and the whole ILG team, and thank you to everybody who is joining us on this evening. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you also for reading our emails that we've been sending out and seeing that so that you can be with us. I also hope that you guys have had a chance to look at the plan. But if you haven't, there's still plenty of time, and we're really looking forward to hearing your feedback. So just, really quickly, the Climate Resilient SD plan is a plan to adapt to the effects of climate change, but it really is so much more. It really is an opportunity for us to get feedback on how we can invest in our communities to make them safer, healthier, and more enjoyable, while we are also having that added benefit of preparing for climate change. And so hearing this feedback from people like you that have taken time out of your lives to share with us how we can invest in our city and our communities to make it better is really valuable as we continue to move this plan forward for adoption. And I just really want to emphasize that the draft that we have available is not a final draft. It's a draft of a plan. And that draft plan really gives us a really critical mechanism to be able to get that refined feedback from people like you that are reading it. So with that, I'm just going to say thank you to everybody for joining us. Thank you for the input that you have provided or will continue to provide. Please reach out to us. Let us know if we can make it easier for you to provide that feedback to us. We really want to be here to help you help us. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jordan Moore, who is our project manager for the Climate Resilient SD plan.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Heidi. Next slide, please. As Heidi mentioned, Climate Resilient SD is going to be the city's climate adaptation and resiliency plan to invest in and improve the lives of people that live in our city, while also increasing local capacity to prepare for, adapt to, recover from, and thrive in a changing climate. Climate Resilient SD is a plan to ensure that while we are investing in climate adaptation, we are also improving the lives of San Diegans by furthering social equity, improving air and water quality, and increasing the safe and enjoyable spaces in our neighborhoods. This plan is identified in the city's existing climate action plan as a critical strategy and is also necessary to meet the Senate Bill 379 requirements to identify strategies to mitigate climate change risks by January 1st of next year. Next slide, please. Climate Resilient SD is really important because, as we may have already noticed, our climate is changing and it's begun affecting the lives of San Diegans. We're seeing increased wildfire risks with larger, more frequent wildfires that will burn longer in the future. We're facing rising seas, which will contribute to coastal flooding, particularly during storm events. We have increased heat waves, both in terms of frequency and intensity. And we're also going to be seeing more variable precipitation, which means more intense rain events, as well as longer periods of drought. These climate change hazards can impact San Diego's people, our economy, our infrastructure, and our natural environment. Next slide, please. Climate Resilient SD is a plan that has been informed by the completion of several vulnerability assessments, which were prepared to identify the city's exposure and vulnerability to climate change hazards. And in San Diego, we have identified 4 primary climate hazards that we face. These are extreme heat, wildfire, changes in precipitation, which includes both flooding and drought, and lastly, sea level rise. The vulnerability assessments identified city asset vulnerability to climate change, as well as potential consequences. And this information in turn helped inform the development of the Climate Resilient SD plan. Next slide, please. Like many of our planning efforts, this has been a several years long process. We began back in 2018 with the completion of 3 climate change vulnerability assessments to help assess climate change hazards and their impacts to the city, which form the basis for the development of the adaptation strategies that are included in the plan. And beginning in 2020, as we began developing the plan itself, we also collected more feedback through community-based organizations, surveys, workshops, stakeholder briefings, community newsletters, and through other community events, such as a living wall event and a community heat mapping event that both took place earlier this summer. Some of our outreach earlier this year included the release of a goals and vision survey late in 2020, partnering with CBOs, releasing our adaptation strategy survey, presenting to stakeholders, and holding an introductory community workshop earlier this year. We had community outreach events throughout the summer, including a living wall event and community heat mapping that I'll discuss a little bit more later. And we released the draft plan a couple weeks ago, which we will continue to improve and refine based on your public feedback. Next slide, please. The first survey that we did for Climate Resilient SD was released in December of 2020 and was open through this February. And this survey included an overview of the 4 primary climate change hazards: wildfire, extreme heat, sea level rise, and flooding and drought. The survey covered how these hazards will intensify in the future and what potential impacts may be for San Diegans. And the tool then presented the drafted goals and asked participants to indicate their level of support for each potential goal. At the end of the survey, participants were able to share their own experience with the effects of climate change in their communities, as well as any other ideas that they had for how San Diego can adapt to changing climate conditions. This survey really helped our staff to ensure that the broader goals that we set for Climate Resilient SD were supported by the community and helped establish a common vision that we can move towards. So some of the results from Survey 1, we saw strong support for goals that focused on the environment, such as protecting environmental quality, which 82% of participants supported. 80% of participants supported increasing green spaces and natural shade within communities. We also saw strong support for community preparedness, being prepared in advance, ready to respond and able to recover from climate change. Over 3/4 of participants strongly supported that goal. There was strong support for prioritizing communities of concern. 75% of participants showed strong support for that. And then the open-ended question that we had at the survey also provided us with excellent insight to common topics of concern for members of the public, actions and strategies that they would like to see the city take, and gave us a better understanding of how climate change has already been affecting their lives. Some of the topics that we saw brought up again and again were the need for more trees, community action, concerns, particularly around extreme heat and wildfire, and the need for better active transportation. The findings from this first survey will help guide and inform the development and refinement of the suite of adaptation strategies that we're including in the plan. With established goals from this survey, we were able to choose strategies that will help support progress towards these goals. And we were also able to develop strategies that will address common areas of concern, such as the need to include and inform communities. Next slide, please. The second survey for Climate Resilient SD was released earlier this spring and was open through June of 2021. And this survey once again included an overview of the 4 primary climate change hazards before presenting a range of potential adaptation strategies for each climate hazard and a brief summary that explained each strategy. We provided a comparison table for each climate hazard that gave an overview of the pros, cons, estimated costs, and effectiveness of the adaptation strategies for public feedback. And participants were also asked to rank their level of support for each potential strategy, to provide feedback on what their priorities would be for selection of strategies, and to share their concerns regarding each of the climate change hazards. Once again, the end of the survey also provided space for additional comments or input. This survey really provided us with some great feedback about potential adaptation strategies so that we can prioritize the type of strategies that the public strongly supported. We saw that 77% of participants strongly supported nature-based solutions in terms of potential strategies to address sea level rise along the coast. Participants also prioritized additional trees and green spaces to help address flooding and extreme heat within their neighborhoods. 2/3 of participants said that they strongly supported land use planning as a strategy to potentially address wildfire, while vegetation management was the second most preferred strategy for this particular hazard. After the participants provided feedback about these individual strategies, they had the opportunity to indicate what their top priorities would be for selecting potential strategies. And we saw that environmental benefits and the long-term effectiveness of each strategy were by far the top priorities that participants selected. 82% of participants said that they would prioritize the environmental benefits of potential strategies, and 2/3 of participants said that they would prioritize the long-term effectiveness. So the findings from this particular survey really helped us to prioritize the potential adaptation strategies that we saw received strong public support. Next slide, please. A successful climate resilient SD plan will be one that addresses the needs of all the city's communities. As we know, the climate change hazards that we face are not new for our region. We've experienced intense wildfires and extreme heat, as well as other hazards in the past. But with a better understanding of how you and other members of the public have been impacted, what resources would be helpful to you, and what concerns you the most, we here at the city will really be able to develop a suite of potential strategies that speak to your needs and priorities, and create a plan that reduces risks to our communities and works towards a more resilient, sustainable, and equitable future. Next slide, please.
Well, next slide, we have actually Diana Ross, Executive Director from Mid-City Can, share a little bit what she heard from her community. But before I pass it to Diana, I just want to reiterate what I was hearing. So a lot of public engagement went into development of the draft plan that we're going to review after Diana's presentation. And what Jordan outlined is some of the events, what they've heard, what the city heard from you, from folks who participated in those events, is nature-based solutions were important. Trees came out over and over again, active transportation. And really when the city asks you what is important to you as a community, how should we prioritize? Because there's a lot of solutions on the papers, but how should we prioritize? What should be important to you? Environmental benefits came out, and long-term effectiveness. So those are interesting findings. So thank you for sharing, Jordan, this with the group. But we would like also to hear a little bit from the community. Diana Ross with Mid-City Can also was one of the partners on this project who talked to her folks at the City Heights and really asked very interesting questions in line with what the city was asking as well. How climate change impacts you, and what is the most important? And for those of you who don't know the nonprofit Mid-City Can, let me give you a little bit of overview what this nonprofit does. And Diana, feel free to add a little bit more if I missed something. So Mid-City Can serves residents of City Heights, and the mission is to create a safe, productive, and healthy community through collaboration, advocacy, and organizing. It's a nonprofit that comprised of residents who care about making a lasting impact in their communities. Residents gather around the top issues they care about, and they form the teams of volunteers. And Mid-City Can help organize these teams to accomplish their goals and priorities that matter to the residents. Diana, did I get that right?
Yeah, it's a really good summary, Hannah. Thank you. Should I just jump in, I guess?
You should just
All right.
jump in.
And
maybe we'll stop sharing for a second so we can see all our other faces. Since Diana, there's no formal presentation, why not?
Yes, I was about to say, so I don't really have a formal presentation to share tonight. As Hannah mentioned, I'm here from Mid-City Can, and I'm very excited to be here to share what we learned. So I'm just going to go for it. What we did is we dialed over 7,400 community members in the community of City Heights. And if you're familiar with San Diego or not, City Heights is east of downtown and kind of centrally located. It's a very populous and dense community. So there are about 65,000 people living in 6.5 square miles. So it's actually a very small area, but within that area, there's lots of people. There's over 80 languages spoken. The other thing that is related to climate about City Heights is how land is used. And it's also the fact that all the major freeways kind of box in City Heights. So way back when, City Heights had this beautiful sprawling community garden, but we don't today because the freeways got put through. And as you may know, freeways have cars on them, but these are also the major arteries that move products from the border and the southern parts of the county up north to other counties like LA, San Bernardino, and of course, pit stops in San Diego. So all of that traffic is generating greenhouse gas emissions. And those emissions are part of what's impacting our climate in San Diego, but more specifically, they're having like a micro concentrated impact in City Heights. So for a couple years now, we have focused primarily on transportation and how that relates to climate. The other piece is land use. So you heard me mention a community garden. It also has to do with the fact that we don't have a lot of green spaces. So you heard Hannah talking about how people said more trees, more green spaces as mitigation strategies. That's something we heard too. So of these 7,000 something phone calls, which we did in different languages, we were able to have over 300 one-on-one conversations. Now, in a normal year, we do these conversations at the door. So we will actually show up at your door and bug you and say, hi, I'm Diana from Mid-City Can. I want to talk to you about X, Y, and Z. And in this case, climate change and climate resiliency. But because of COVID-19, we did this on the phone. And we learned similar things to the summary that Hannah and Jordan were mentioning, but we actually got like this really rich data. So people were really, really aware of two things. They were aware of how climate intersects with health, and they were also really aware of how climate intersects with economy. And when it came to health, people shared everything from trouble breathing, so asthma, or over time having to use oxygen. They shared pollution issues. They shared the impact of hotter days. So how hotter days can jeopardize your health. And when it came to economy, they talked about the impact that it has on jobs, but also the opportunity that it has for green jobs. And so it was super exciting to get this kind of feedback from our community members, because I don't think we were really sure what we were going to hear. So I'm just going to read out a couple of the quotes that we have from folks. So when we asked, how has climate impacted you? One person said it's way too hot. The food we eat, it's impacting our food. It's creating forest fires, drought. The ocean is turning brown, our animals. People also talked about air quality. It's changing my mood, one person said. So people didn't just define health in terms of physical health, they also defined it in terms of our mood. The summers are harder, the winters are colder. Allergy season, you can definitely feel the change in climate as years go by, especially in allergy season. Living with no air conditioning is bad when we have extremely high heat temperatures or humidity. So people were really, here's someone who said, quote, I mentioned I am being worried about food production. So people were really, really aware that climate had this ripple effect on other aspects of their life. So it wasn't just health or the need for more greenery, but it was all this really rich information about one person says crazy weather. So everything from crazy weather to another person said lung dysfunction, or water being wasted, or food being wasted, and how all these things came together. But the coolest part, I think, was hearing that people also talked about climate change and mitigation strategies in terms of opportunity. So it wasn't just like climate change is this thing. It was also about the potential of green jobs. And maybe I could see myself in a green job one day as the city is preparing for climate change. And so that part was really cool, because it really gave me a lot of hope to hear that. I think that's kind of what I have to share. Hannah, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like me to talk about.
I think that's beautiful, Diana. And there's a surveys and numbers, but this is something that brings us back to the very real situation. Climate change impact all of us, no matter where you live. It impact all aspects of our life, as Diana mentioned. And at the same time, there's also an opportunity. And I think I want to connect us back to that opportunity, that
Right.
Climate Resilience San Diego draft plan that we will start reviewing in just a moment, present this opportunity to address some of the concerns and provide more opportunity for healthier San Diego moving forward. Thank you, Diana. Let's give Diana a virtual round of applause. If you guys
It's
know
okay.
how to use it, your reactions. And I'm going to ask my colleague Melissa to share back the PowerPoint. Thank you. And meanwhile, as we continue with our PowerPoint and learning about the draft plan, please feel free to drop your questions or comments in the chat, and we'll address them after this presentation.
All right, thank you so much, Diana and Hannah. I'm going to jump right back into it. With some help and feedback from the public, we were able to develop 5 main goals for a climate resilient city. We want to ensure that our communities are connected and informed to be best prepared for climate change. We want to plan for and build a resilient and equitable city. We want to safeguard, preserve, and protect historic and tribal cultural resources from the effects of climate change, to support and prioritize thriving natural environments and enhance adaptability. And lastly, we want to maintain and ensure minimal disruption to all critical city services in the face of climate change hazards. Next slide, please. The Climate Resilient SD plan is structured into a series of goals, policies, and strategies. The goals reflect our broader vision for San Diego. The policies guide implementation actions and reflect the city's values and priorities. And then the strategies are individual implementation actions that will help us build more resilient communities and prepare the city for climate change impacts. Next slide, please. We have a total of 86 proposed strategies that are included in the draft plan, and additional details on each of the strategies will also be included as part of Appendix A, which will outline the climate hazards that each strategy addresses, the actions needed to implement that strategy, core benefits to be realized with strategy implementation. I'm excited to talk to you about core benefits a little bit more later. And lastly, the appendix will also show the implementation timeframe and order of magnitude of the costs for each strategy. Next slide, please. One of the primary goals of the Climate Resilient SD plan is to make a clear statement that we prioritize investments and resources in underserved communities for those with the greatest needs and the fewest resources available to adapt. When we identify vulnerabilities, we're talking about consequences, and the consequences of a vulnerability can be felt very differently across the city. For example, the effects of extreme heat will be felt differently by those who have resources, insulated homes with air conditioning, than by those who have older homes without AC and who cannot easily access public spaces where they can cool down. Therefore, strategies to adapt to extreme heat, such as tree plantings, cool zones, and cool streets, need to be prioritized in areas that have the greatest need. For each adaptation strategy, the plan identifies core benefits that the city gains from its implementation in addition to addressing and adapting to climate change. And equity is one of these core benefits that can be gained through many of our strategies. And we have identified it as a prioritized factor for implementation. Ongoing equitable engagement with our residents will also be critical to successful implementation of the plan to ensure that we deliver needed infrastructure to the communities that need it most and that meet the specific needs of those communities. Next slide, please. The plan also prioritizes nature-based climate change solutions. These are solutions that work with nature to address climate change, meaning that they leverage the ecosystem benefits that a well-managed ecosystem can provide, such as greenhouse gas emissions reductions, cleaner air, and water quality protection. Nature-based solutions are prioritized in the plan because of the multiple benefits that they can provide to communities and to the city overall. such as additional green spaces not only serving as a recreational space, but also providing community cooling and cleaner air. Some examples of nature-based solutions include restored natural landscapes, such as wetlands and the creation of living shorelines, as well as green streets, bioswales, and tree plantings. Next slide, please. The Climate Resilient SD plan includes an entire suite of these proposed adaptation and resiliency strategies. And these strategies fall mainly into two categories: those that provide risk mitigation and those that will help build better communities. The risk mitigation strategies reduce exposure to climate hazards, reduce the sensitivity to that exposure, or increase the capacity to adapt. Strategies focused on building better communities increase the ability of a community to respond to climate change impacts. Next slide, please. The strategies included in the draft plan are intended to be people-centered, meaning that they are not only intended to adapt to climate change, but also to improve the lives of people that live in and visit our city. For example, we should increase access to cool zones, increase access to parks and open spaces, and the overall shaded area available at these spaces. We can add more community gardens and vacant lots, rooftops, or other public spaces. We should develop an urban greening program to promote expanded green spaces in urban areas, particularly in communities of concern. We should develop resilience hubs in communities of concern, and we should cultivate leadership and environmental stewardship in San Diego's youth. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, many of the strategies included in the plan are focused on protecting our natural spaces, clean air and water, and protecting the plants and animals that live in San Diego. We want to plant and maintain trees, support healthy watersheds, and ensure the preservation of our sensitive open space areas. Some other specific strategies in this topic area include incorporating considerations for a changing climate into urban forestry management and planning, continuing to implement land management practices that support ecosystem function and healthy watersheds, which will in turn increase the capacity of these systems to withstand stress from climate change. And we can develop an action plan to support the completion of the city's multiple species conservation plan preserve. Next slide, please. The plan also includes many strategies that are focused on education and outreach, including develop a comprehensive climate adaptation community outreach program, conduct community outreach through various methods and in multiple languages to share climate change and climate adaptation information and resources with communities, continually improve upon principles for meaningful and equitable community engagement, and provide information and guidance for residents in areas that are potentially prone to climate change hazards. Next slide, please. And of course, the Climate Resilient SD plan also addresses the city's critical infrastructure so that we as a city can continue to serve our residents every day. Some strategies to maintain critical city operations include updating the city's CIP process to address equity and resiliency factors and prioritization, developing new guidelines for city infrastructure and development, maintaining road access, and expanding safe and enjoyable walking and biking facilities, accounting for sea level rise and precipitation changes in our water and wastewater master planning, diversifying the city's water supply, such as through our Pure Water program, and potentially implementing microgrids to increase grid resiliency. Next slide, please. So the Climate Resilient SD plan includes this suite of 86 potential adaptation strategies that will help the city mitigate risks to climate change. Implementation of the plan will cost money, but it is estimated that proactive planning and strategic action now will be 4 to 6 times less expensive than doing nothing. The plan is designed as a policy framework with flexible implementation, which allows us the ability to prioritize implementation based off core benefits. These core benefits, which we developed and refined using extensive public feedback, include social equity, public health and safety, natural resource protection and air quality, water quality, greenhouse gas mitigation, recreation, and economic continuity. So you'll see that several of the core benefits here, especially public health and safety, social equity, and economic continuity, really touch on some of the issues and concerns that we've heard from members of the public so far. The core benefits are associated with each potential strategy in the plan, which allows us to select for strategies based off of these important priorities. But ultimately, the success of any plan depends on its implementation, and the Climate Resilient SD plan is no different. The plan is designed to provide for flexibility so that it is implemented in a way that best serves our communities based on conditions at the time of implementation. The strategies that we've identified in the plan are potential strategies, but the specific selection of the types of strategies are decisions that will continue to need to be made throughout our lifetime. This means that continuous community engagement will be critical to the plan's success, especially as we continue to regularly monitor the plan's implementation. Next slide, please. The city has already begun working to implement several of these adaptation strategies. Earlier this summer, City Planning Department staff partnered with the YMCA to help campers create a new living wall at the Copley Price YMCA in City Heights. Staff had the opportunity to teach the campers about how green spaces support clean air and help the city prepare for climate change, all the while helping them play a hands-on role in a project for their own community. The city also had the opportunity to partner with the San Diego Foundation and hold a community heat mapping event in September. Students from High Tech High and other community volunteers used sensors like the one shown in the photo here and drove routes across the city in the morning, afternoon, and evening. This will provide us with a heat profile throughout the day to better understand which areas of our city are heating up more on hot days and how that changes over the course of each day. The study area for this heat mapping focused on communities of concern, plus a buffer zone, so that we could cover the full spatial extent possible with our sensors. And the data collected through this effort is very exciting because it will provide us with location-specific, on-the-ground information about how hot days are affecting different areas of our city and where we need to prioritize implementation of strategies to address extreme heat. Next slide, please. We released the draft plan earlier this month, and we anticipate public hearings on Climate Resilient SD to begin this fall, with the goal of seeing the plan adopted by City Council by the end of this year to comply with the state deadline. The draft plan that was released earlier this month was drafted based on input that we have received so far on the plan, what we've heard about what our residents and businesses want to see as we face a changing climate. However, that is not the end of the help that we need to make this plan the best that it can be. With the draft plan now released and available, your input is more critical than ever. Next slide, please. We really value the time that you spend reviewing this plan, and we can't wait to hear your feedback and suggestions on how we can improve it. There are many ways that you can stay engaged and share your feedback with us too. You can start by signing up for updates on our website at www.sandiego.gov/resiliency. We hope that you will share your comments and feedback on our live and interactive Conveyo site, which Hannah will be demonstrating for you later. Or you can also email us, send us a letter, or any other way that is best for you. Please just let us know. Next slide.
Okay, thank you, Jordan, for giving us what we intended to be a high-level overview of the plan. For those of you who already checked out the website, you know the plan is 50+ pages. So the goal for this presentation is really to share this journey where the city and you have been in terms of developing the plan. What's in the plan? Jordan described this like high-level overview strategy and mentioned there are 86 of them. There's no way we're going to go over them today, but we will have some facilitated discussion around some strategies and really emphasize that engagement continues. There's going to be public hearings, which will display that slide one more time, but also the city would like to hear from you about the implementation and comments on the draft plan. So this workshop is really just the beginning of starting commenting on the plan. So you didn't miss anything, but thank you so much for being here and participating. I do want to maybe ask, I've seen a lot of good comments in the chat and several questions that already been asking, but I thought one of the questions was very good for the greater benefit of the group. What is the as we're talking about climate resilient San Diego plan, what is the difference between climate action plan and climate resilient San Diego plan? So let's maybe have San Diego team answer that question. So you kind of wrap around your head around that concept as we go to the breakout groups. It's going to be easier to participate.
Really good question, totally relevant. So a climate action plan is a plan to reduce emissions within the city. So focusing on mitigation strategies that reduce the city's greenhouse gas emissions, so harmful emissions into the environment. So examples of that would be driving cars less, focusing on increasing access to transit, safe walking and biking opportunities. A lot of these measures can also double as climate resiliency measures as well, though. So for example, well, let me go back, what a climate adaptation and resiliency plan is. So a climate adaptation and resiliency plan accepts that there will be climate change and that hazardous events will occur despite our best efforts to mitigate our emissions. And so what the plan is intended to do is identify a suite of strategies that we can implement within the city to not only adapt to climate change, but be resilient to climate change. And when we say be resilient to climate change, that means how do we come back stronger, even in the face of a climate hazard event? So extreme heat is a great example. It affects a lot of people throughout the city, and it also disproportionately affects vulnerable populations that don't have access to homes that may have insulation or air conditioning, or in general are located in parts of the city that due to the environment in which it's located suffers from much more extreme heat hazard events. We can plant trees, and those planting of trees is a way that we can adapt to heat, but planting trees also makes our communities nicer, provides air quality improvement benefits, and can also provide that shade relief to adapt to the extreme heat.
Thanks, Heidi. And I cannot help but reflect on Diana's quote about the weather is crazy, it's too hot. So climate action plan prevents extreme heats in the future, right, by reducing greenhouse gas. But meanwhile, it's already hot because it's already happening. So that's where climate resilience comes in. How do we adapt and mitigate and make our communities healthy, and how we do with this heat mapping to figure out which communities are affected and where by the heat more. That's how I think about it. So excellent question, right on point. Thank you for that. So I want to make sure we are staying on time, and we're running a little bit behind, but that's okay. I hope, guys, it was very helpful for you to learn about the high level overview. So let's keep going. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to introduce this online interactive commenting tool. As you know, the plan has been posted, and there's several opportunities to comment it. You can email traditional, you can pull out traditional PDF and email your comments in a long list of bullet points, or there's another way to do that. And I'm going to share my screen and walk you through that other way, how we can do it. And I'm going to start with the Google search, because I don't know about you guys, but I do not remember all the links. And I'm just going to Google climate resilient San Diego, because after this workshop, I kind of remember this word. And then the first search in the Google is going to be the main page of the City of San Diego Sustainability Department, where Heidi and Jordan work. And right on top of that page, that's where you guys all registered for the workshop. So I hope you're familiar with that. The very top link is a link to the what we call conveyor site that takes you to Climate Resilient San Diego draft plan. So once you land on this page, this is where your plan is located. This and also back on the website as a PDF. You can download it from here too. So super intuitive website. You do need to, and let me move this a little bit and let me get my annotation tool going. Okay, so this is your landing page. You do need to create an account, but it literally takes 2 seconds, and all the system is asking is to provide first name, last name, and email address. So as you land on this page, the city already provided instructions how to participate. So you click on this drop-down menu. We'll come back to this in just a moment. There's a letter from the mayor. You can definitely read the letter. It's also in the plan. I'm going to collapse it back. There's acknowledgement of the land's original stewards. And all the way a little bit down this page, that's where the draft plan is broken into 4 different parts. And it is very intentional. We do recognize that all of us are very busy. So if you have little time to submit your comments, or you can just jump to the section that interests you most, so you don't have to scroll through the entire plan. Also, on the bottom of the screen, you're gonna see appendices. And those are adaptation and resilience strategies that Jordan was talking about earlier. Okay, so again, the goal is just to show you what's on the website and how you navigate. And as I mentioned, it's super intuitive. So let's click, for example, I don't know, section 3, and my ILG team, keep me honest, make sure my screen is still shared and you can see what I'm seeing. So this is one of the sections of the plan, what we face. And here you can also have different controls. So you can enlarge, zoom in or zoom out on the plan. Let me make it a little bit bigger for you. And I will zoom out maybe just once. So this is your plan. This is a PDF in an interactive format. This little blue buttons provide more information. So when I click on it, it tells me right away what this section is about. And I'm like, well, you know what? Wildfire extreme heat, yes, that's what I want to read. That's where I want to maybe leave my comments. And key findings, excellent, thank you. I'm going to click that, close that, and I'm going to scroll through the plan. And this is the draft plan. So how can you comment on this? Very easy. The commenting is easy. You have this little bubble you see right here. And I'll just put my bubble here. And I already created a login, a test, so you guys can see how to comment. I can put, I agree. The wildfires are big risk. Of course, I cannot type, but test. So the city knows it's a test. And then I'm gonna select suggestion or question, and I'm gonna post. So I'm not gonna actually edit. I'm not gonna put it right now. So that's it for comments. So you can submit your comments just clicking anywhere on the plan. But actually, I would ask you to click on the margins of the page, because when people click on the bottom, it kind of in the middle, it covers the text. And as you can see, some folks already started posting comments. So if you want to read the plan, if you want to read other people's comments, you do not need to create an account. But if you would like to comment, you will have to create an account. So let's see what other comments are already in the plan. And this is the beauty of this tool. Not only you read the plan, but you also can look at other people's comments. Okay, so this is the one comment. I'm not going to read it. Looks like smoke impacts on land values, tourism, things like that. And you continue scrolling through the plan, looking at different maps, looking at different content, and also reading other people's comments. If you want, you can actually use agree, disagree. That's another way to participate, and also post your own comments. And that's it. to this tool. This is it. And then when you're done with this section, you're gonna go back and comment, open another section, and keep going through the plan. Again, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen because I just want to give you a brief overview, because some of you actually said that they want to be in the breakout group to learn more about this tool. We're going to do a deeper dive so that you guys know this is the tool. This is an opportunity to comment. Can I see a little quick reactions? Intuitive, easy, not easy. I see some thumbs up. Monica, and so. Dante sent me a heart sign. I'll take that too. Okay, so this is your online commenting platform. Very easy. We are hoping after this workshop in the next week, months, you're gonna get on this platform. You're gonna spend some time with that plan, and you're gonna share with the city of San Diego your thoughts and comments. Okay, we are running a little bit over time, but we are doing just fine. What are we doing next? Next, we're gonna have breakout groups. When you guys registered for the workshop, and I forgot to tell you the instructions, but I kind of told you those instructions in real time to get on the website, learn about the plan, review comments, put your own comments. Let's go into the breakout group instructions. Now we're gonna break you into different groups. When you registered for the workshop, we asked you about the topic you're interested in. And this is an opportunity for have a little bit deeper dialogues and hear from each other. Those are gonna be facilitated group discussions, and we will take notes. And those are the topics on the screen that you're already familiar with. So here are your group instructions. You're gonna be automatically on your screen. You're gonna see join the group. Please accept that blue button when you see it on the screen popping up in just a moment. Depending on the group, if it's a large group, stay on mute, or if it's a small group, you can unmute yourself, see what works. Your group facilitators will provide additional instructions. We would like you to stay in your group, but if at any point you would like to leave your group, please come back to the main session. There's gonna be a social equity group in the main session, but my colleague Kim Danko will do the best to move you to another group. So just text her via chat that you would like to move to another group, but there's an option to leave. And also for the Spanish speaking participants, you guys gonna stay in the main group. So we will continue that simultaneous interpretation. I'm gonna check in with my colleague Kim to see if we are ready for the groups.
Thanks, Hannah. Yes, we are ready. So you're going to be invited to join your group, which you'll see is labeled by the topic you chose. And those that chose social equity, just stay here in the main channel, and we'll have facilitators here as well for you. And I'll be sending you some time reminders as well. And then just let me know if you're in the wrong room or need to be changed.
We're going to spend 20 minutes in the group and come back at 6:27.
Great. I want to welcome, we are in the main room. My name is Carly Brown. I'm the Assistant Executive Director at the Institute for Local Government, and I've been working with Hannah and the rest of the ILG team to put this workshop together, along with our friends at the City of San Diego. So thank you all for joining. We do have one of the bigger groups, and we're the ones who are staying in the main area. I'm going to ask all of those who choose English, who would like to have this experience in English, to go down and click the English translation button on the bottom of your screen. It's a little globe. If you click English, you will continue to be able to hear me in English. Those who do not will go into the Spanish translation, and they will be hearing this translated into Spanish. So can I get a thumbs up or some sort of affirmation that everyone can continue to hear me? Those who want to hear English. Got lots of thumbs up. I think our Spanish person, we see our interpreter there, and I think she's going great. All righty. Thank you guys so much for joining the social equity group. We have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have enough people where I would love to go around and just do quick introductions from our folks in the community to kind of understand what brought you here to the social equity group. I'd love everyone to turn on your cameras if you're willing to. We'd love to hear, we love to see faces. We love to get to know you. We want to hear from you. And since Dante put on his camera first, I'm going to go ahead and start with him. And Dante, can you introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about what brought you into this meeting? Oh, you're on mute. I think we can.
I'm Dante Laghetto. I'm a registered nurse at Kaiser Permanente, part of the Kaiser Permanente San Diego Green Team. Now also leadership council for the Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Environments. And so that's one of the reasons I'm very activist on climate change. And we're trying our best to do the better for our local community.
Wonderful. Thanks for being with us, Dante. Jim, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and let us know why you came to this group.
Yeah, hi. Actually not a San Diego resident. I live in Encinitas, and I used to be on the Encinitas Environmental Commission, used to chair it. So climate change is probably my main concern about the environment. So I'm interested in seeing what San Diego is doing.
Wonderful. We appreciate you joining us. Brenda, can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about you? Look familiar.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Brenda Garcia Millan. I'm the research and policy analyst with Climate Action Campaign. We are a local organization that seeks to find solutions to the climate emergency. And the main reason I'm here is because I'm also conducting research on climate adaptation and resilience strategies. And I'm just happy to be here to learn more about the city's plan.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us, Brenda. Dan, can I ask you to introduce yourself and tell us why you joined us?
Yeah, definitely. I'm keeping my camera off because I'm not feeling very well, but I'm still happy to be here. My name is Dan Miller. I use she or they pronouns. I am part of the San Diego Urban Sustainability Coalition, as well as Grid Alternatives San Diego, as well as Slow Food, because you can never have too many things going on. I'm also a master's student at University of San Diego, kind of operating at the intersection of community wellness and civic ecology. So yeah.
Great, Dan. Thanks so much for joining us. And Maria, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Maria Rivera. I am the co-chair of the JEDI team for San Diego 350. I'm also part of San Diego Green New Deal. I'm doing a master's in environmental science, and I work for UC San Diego Health. And I'm part of a working group for diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice there.
Great. Well, thank you guys all for joining us. We have quite the esteemed group here. Lots of hats you all wearing, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to Heidi von Bloom for just a second to really kind of talk through the social equity components of this plan. So we all get a little bit more basis of where we're talking about, and then we'll have an interactive discussion together. So without that, Heidi, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi again. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Heidi von Blum. I'm the deputy director in the city's planning department. One of the reasons, one of the things that you'll see in the draft plan is that we created what we're calling core benefits that are associated with each of the potential adaptation strategies. And the idea is that this will allow the city to select and prioritize implementation of strategies based off of these important priorities. And social equity is one of these priorities. So thank you for selecting this topic so that you can join us in this breakout group. The core benefit of this strategy is to protect the city's most vulnerable communities from the effects of climate change. So examples of adaptation strategies that address climate change, but that also can advance the city's social equity goals are provision of cool zones, really providing easily accessible locations, not just actual hard structure cooling zones, but also shade corridors and access to our coast as well. Another thing that you will see for a strategy is really to be able to have a meaningful, continual, and equitable community engagement, continuing to identify ways to remove barriers to participation so that as we implement the strategies in the plan, we know that we're using our resources in a way that best serves the needs of the individuals that actually live in the communities. Other strategies relate to developing urban greening programs. What this means is promoting expanded green spaces in urban areas. This can not only help with stormwater runoff and flooding, but also heat relief from extreme heat events. We also have strategies related to exploring access and increasing access to healthy food markets, farmers markets, other local food networks, particularly in our traditionally underserved communities. And then, as mentioned in one of the comments in the main room, focusing on increasing access to parks and open spaces for everybody in the city. And really looking at increasing our overall shaded areas within our park spaces, so that not only are the park spaces, but there's park spaces that we can all enjoy and use as relief from extreme heat events as well. With that, we would love to turn it over to you that have joined us to hear from you the types of other strategies, whether or not you've had a chance to review the strategies in the plan or just have any other ideas about the types of things that we can be investing in our communities to advance equity, prioritize equity, and really engage with the community in a way that that works for everybody, that is meaningful, and that allows us, as we implement the plan, to continue to have that productive, truly representative engagement so that we can make informed decisions that best serve people like you and your communities.
Yeah, thanks so much, Heidi. I mean, I think we have a small enough group where folks can just jump in if they have a reflection on what Heidi just said. Do these things sound like the right kind of strategies to address social equity? Do you have other thoughts on the subject? We'd love to hear from you. Dante's giving a thumbs up. Brenda and Dan, I know you guys did some, outreach within the communities from the various groups that you are engaged in. Can you tell me, does this kind of reflect what you heard from the community members and what you feel personally really needs to happen to address social equity in the community of San Diego? Brenda, can I call on you to start?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I wanted to say about just like community engagement is that I think it's important to like identify like how these communities are actually going to be engaged, especially in the implementation process. And I just by doing a bit on research on like plan implementation, I read that one thing that you can do is to give access to communities to like participate in what it's called like quick impact projects, because often when you go to a community and you talk about plans that are going to take 10 years or 20 or 40 to implement, like no one is going to be interested, right? But if there are particular like specific projects that you can identify in the plan that can get people excited, and if you have projects that will have immediate impacts or immediate results that people can see, I think that is going to be a really, effective way to catalyze local engagement and to make it permanent throughout the implementation process.
That's a really great comment, Brenda, and I completely agree. We want to start doing things as soon as possible to continue to engage, and also so that more people will want to engage because they'll see exciting things happening in their communities. So we tried to, do a demonstration project of something that we can do while we're engaging and getting feedback. And so you saw some of the pictures from the Living Wall. We actually got a $1,000 grant, which for those of you that work in government know doesn't go very far. And thankfully we have a really dedicated team of staff members here in the planning department. And we were able to work with the Copley Price YMCA to be able to install that living wall kind of with like that seed money. And it's an example of, taking a small amount of resources and really bringing an immediate and positive improvement to the community. That urban greening space, also improving, adaptation to extreme heat, as well as improving air quality and just providing a really beautiful asset for the community to enjoy in the process. So that was one example. And then also, I think some of you might have helped us with this heat mapping, but we were able to also partner with High Tech High School and the San Diego Foundation to send the heat sensors around most of the city. We focused on areas most vulnerable to extreme heat based on information that through a separate grant we got from NASA scientists, which was really cool, to be able to really actually have people that live in the communities taking the heat sensor measurements. And that's what we can use to, focus where we're putting our investments. So when we say we want to invest in the areas of the greatest needs, having that data that citizen scientists essentially gave to us makes it so that we have a map that shows where we need to prioritize the installation of shade trees, cooler streets, other type of amenities within those communities to improve the community. So those are just two examples of things. And we just are so excited to have a plan in place so that we can continue to move forward and work with our community partners to do exactly the types of projects that you see and kind of have the opportunity to engage the community, get feedback while we're also working towards a really cool community project.
Thanks, Heidi. Dante, you gave us a thumbs up. Can you tell us what you like about the plan and if there's anything you think might need further refinement?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I got to read a study done at Richmond, City of Virginia, the other side of and they did the heating planning, and they have specific areas where they can see where there is more heat on extreme heat days, and where there are a higher number of 911 calls heat related. And I think that'll be also interesting to be adding to the plan where if we can compare 911 calls related to extreme heat on those days, and versus areas that greening areas, for more advanced on an economic level. Brenda, I want to mention something that Brenda is correct. I believe that what Mayor Todd Glory is doing right now, it's a bold project, right? Because elected officials, if they plan something that's too far ahead, they may not win the votes that they need to keep progressing. So that congratulations for him to start with, right? And then I look forward to see the heat mapping that City of San Diego just promoted, and I'm wondering what the plans are going to be to improve the those areas where there are more heats, more concrete or more paved surfaces throughout the city. Perhaps greening trees, of course, trees provide shade and also cooling areas, or maybe just some low maintenance irrigation systems in the area so they can maintain. It's not just putting a bunch of trees, and not being able to maintain these trees.
Can I make a comment?
Absolutely, go ahead, Jim.
So one thing I hope you will address is the so-called digital divide, because not everyone has high-speed internet. Not everyone has a laptop, and this meeting is an example. I wonder how many people are from your target communities are represented here. Are you reaching out to them? How do you reach them? Because I don't think they necessarily feel that comfortable on a Zoom call. They may want a more in-person call.
Absolutely. We hear you loud and clear, Jim. And I will say that I want to commend the City of San Diego for really thinking of how to engage folks that don't normally come to meetings, those that don't feel great on internet. And as you heard from Diana earlier, the City of San Diego is actually engaged with 5 different community-based organizations to help solve some of those language barriers, technical barriers. So they've extended the public engagement and done everything, like Diana said, from calling people on the phone and having conversations that way. They are trying to do some in-person surveys, but that's harder because of COVID and to really talk to folks that way. I think they've done surveys, they've done online meetings, that we're trying to do a mix of things to make sure that everyone feels comfortable giving their feedback. And as Hannah said earlier, we have this new digital tool, the Conveo tool, where you can add your comments online for those who feel tech savvy. I'm not one of those people too. So there's opportunities just to make a phone call, send an email, drop a note, a letter in the mail to the city of San Diego to make sure that folks' priorities and concerns are really addressed in this plan.
And just to add to that too, we definitely hear you on that. And even despite COVID, our City of San Diego Planning Department team has been out in the communities. We've tried on the weekends to be at as many supermarkets, sharing information on the weekends. We also have held in-person events throughout the community. And we're also hosting, I'll just put a little plug in for this. We're hosting a movie night at Mountain View Park. We're doing a showing of Our Planet, but we'll also be sharing information on our climate resiliency plan and taking feedback as well. But part of this engagement process, part of the partnering with our community-based organizations, getting out in the communities, is learning how we can be better at doing that. So part of this outreach that we're doing on this plan is for outreach and comments on the plan. But a lot of it is looking for suggestions on how we can better reach harder to reach communities and make it easier to participate, because I think, as we all know, like, these workshops are just like really hard for normal people to attend to, but we want to make it clear, and maybe you can help us spread the word on this, that these workshops are a way for us to reach people, but we definitely don't see this as like our primary source of community engagement. We have lots of other things going on, but we also are always looking for suggestions on how we can improve.
And then Dante, I do see your hand. We have about 2 minutes left, and I just want to make sure that Dan and Maria want to make sure I give you a chance to comment on something in case you want to, before we go to Dante and wrap up the conversation.
Yeah, I'll chime in really quickly. To answer your previous question, I do see a lot of I see a lot reflected here of what we heard from our communities when we being San Diego Urban Sustainability Coalition, have done our outreach around climate action plan and getting communities of concern engaged in these concepts. And I'm really happy to see some of this approach of, honoring the Indigenous and traditional ecological knowledge of our First Nations peoples here in San Diego. I mean, truly, they hold all of the solutions. And I think it's not just about getting their perspective and their viewpoint, but also elevating them to positions of leadership to be making more decisions about how we address the effects of climate change. And on that, plans are just that, they're plans. They're certainly meant to be forward facing. And at the same time, part of that trust and becoming more accessible to hard to reach populations is being willing to unpack the harm and acknowledge the part that the city, our system, et cetera, have had in creating a lot of these problems. And we also have to be explicit in calling that out. It's not the environment that people are living in, it's the environment that was created for them because of exclusionary practices and policies. And what I don't see in this plan, and what would be a really great next step, because this is a really great, I don't want to gloss over what I've just said about this really, I think, integrating a lot of community voice. But it would be great for this to include a plan about how the city plans to unpack that harm and also be more proactive in unpacking the harm and letting us know what you all are doing structurally and organizationally to leave room for social equity within your organization as well, because it does require some rethinking of how we approach
Dan, you kind of muted yourself.
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to say it requires a restructuring internally for folks administering these programs and doing the outreach. It just requires it all around. So we're seeing here what will happen in our communities, and it would be great if this plan also reflected what will be happening within the institutions and municipalities responsible for guiding this work.
Really appreciate that comment, Dan. As you can see, we're getting new guests to join in our room. We are in the main room, so folks are coming out of their breakout rooms. I do want to let all the folks in my room know that we have taken explicit notes, and we will share those back with the city. We're going to type them out from all of the different breakout rooms. The ILG team took very detailed notes, and we'll be sharing that back. And that's just one other way that the comments from this will be fed back into the plan that we have.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Carla. Welcome everyone back. We have about 1 minute before we're wrapping up the workshop. And I'm gonna show you the slide that you already actually seen. Jordan already went over this slide, but I just wanna make sure you have this information handy, and it's gonna be next slide. Again, here's our timeline. The San Diego team is accepting comments on the draft plan and welcoming those comments. You can submit your comments via a Conveyor platform, those online digital tool site that I showed you, or you can email them to Jordan. Couple days for you. Couple dates for you for anticipated public hearings for the Planning Commissioner, November 4th, Environment Committee, November 18th, and City Council, December 21st. Anticipated public hearings. The key word is anticipated. And again, feel free to reach out to San Diego team, comment on the plan, learn more on the website, register to receive updates on the website as well. And Jordan, who you met today, is your point of contact. We're going to launch a very last quick poll just so we understand what is the best way for the city to reach out. It's going to take you literally.
Hannah, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to clarify that the city council hearing date is not confirmed. We don't typically have a date until a little bit closer, but we are targeting December 2021 of this year.
Thanks, Heidi. Yes. And we're going to ask you very last question before we let you go. We just want to make sure you receive your information the way that most works for you. So Melissa, I don't know if people can see the question.
I no longer have access to our polls for some reason. So maybe Kim can launch this for us.
I'm going to launch it. Here it is.
There we go.
Okay, we just want to see what's the best way for the city to reach out to you. So please feel free to answer. And after you answer this question, we would like to say good night and thank you so much for participating. I hope this was informative and productive and positive experience. And as Jordan mentioned, the public engagement will continue. Heidi or Jordan, anything to add?
Thank you everybody for coming. I know that it's always hard to participate in 90-minute workshops. Really appreciate your time, and we hope that you'll share this information with all of your networks and let us know how we can best interact with you, reach you, and please continue to share your comments with us. We are really excited to read them. Thank you.
Great. Good night, everyone. Thank you, Dante.